Hello, everyone. Here we are, soft launch for Track Talk with Emily, Mackay, and Byron LaBare. Emily's coming off an incredible year with qualifying for the Olympics, running the third fastest time in the 1,500 meters in women's history in the United States. So what we're going to be doing for you on a monthly basis, we're going to have a podcast. We're going to be talking about exciting things in the running world. We're going to be interviewing some runners from around the world. And we're also going to be talking about Emily and Byron. And we're going to get into different running advice, talking about different workouts and all the fun stuff with running. So, Emily, welcome to the show. And I look forward to doing this with you on a monthly basis.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm just getting back off of my off season right now. I just had my first workout of the 2025 season yesterday, and it went really well. I'm excited to be back into it because I feel like after a month off from workouts, I feel like I just need to get back rolling and feel like a professional runner again, because I was starting to feel like I really was losing fitness. And even just having one workout kind of reminds you like, okay, like you don't actually lose that much in just 1 month of no workouts. I was still doing easy runs and stuff, but just kind of without as much structure and all just easy efforts. But it feels good to be back in the full swing of things.
Can't believe it's been a month already, because that was Fifth Avenue Mile when you took off after that. And that's actually when I started to run a little bit more per your advice. So it's crazy. You for a month took that time off, and here I am focusing so much for a month of like, all right, 30 minutes run, 20-minute runs to get my fitness even just starting to go again.
Right. I mean, in a way, I guess we're kind of in the same phase of our training, just base and building up, consistent 30-minute runs every day. Like that's amazing. And that's what I was doing after taking 10 days off, no running. I started back with 30-minute runs and just building from there. So yeah, I think it's a great way to start and build that base strength for the rest of the year.
Yeah. And I want to thank you, because when we were walking around with Grayson in New York after Fifth Avenue Mile, you were talking about, giving me some advice about starting back up. And I actually left with that, and I came back here and I was struggling with just going out for like a 2-mile run or a 3-mile run, because I felt like, why am I running for 2 miles? But I've been doing the whole 30-minute run. So going for time versus distance. And here I am a month later and up to 5 miles. So thanks for the advice.
You're welcome. And feeling healthy too, right?
Well, I mean, that's actually the funny thing. And this is where I would love to have this conversation with you on some of the notes we've talked about back and forth. But the last month for me, it's more having the plan, because you have to be consistent. And you've always said, the consistency. And I feel strongly about that too. But for me, it's the little niggles, the knee hurts, then the quad hurts. It's the different things from taking the time off. It's like I have to put more effort almost into my body and the recovery than the actual run. The run part's so fun. I mean, I'd love to go out for a 2-hour run right now, but my body won't respond great with it. But thanks for the advice, because it's going really well.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. I'm glad to hear it's going well. I feel like it's definitely harder to do the little things sometimes, because it's like what we want to be doing is going out for a run, not necessarily taking the 10 minutes to just roll and stretch and take care of the body, but it's equally as important. And so I guess in the long run, it does make running more enjoyable when your body's just going to feel better if you take the time to do the little things, even if it's kind of boring and not necessarily the most fun part.
No, and you bring up a great point, because I think this is for maybe anyone out there that's coming back from an injury or time off. Because I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but like when I was just starting up again, it's been about 2 months now running I was like, all right, I have to do 5-10 minutes of getting the body ready to go for a run. Then you run for 20 or 30 minutes. And then you come home and you have to, I do the foam roller and I do my stretches and stuff. So it's like I spend more time doing the things after and before running than my actual run. But Absolutely. Now 2 months into it, it's worth it. So it's like getting over that hump of the first couple months of doing all those extras. Now you have to keep doing them, but it's like now it's the enjoyment of, I just went out and did a 35-minute run. Mm-hmm. I want to get much further, but it's like, it's so fun to be able to go out and do that 35-minute run.
Yeah, definitely. So eventually you get to a point where you are running for longer than you are doing the little things. But yeah, it seems kind of silly sometimes that a 30-minute run's actually going to take an hour because of all the prep and all the post recovery stuff that you have to do.
Speaking of all that and stuff, I know we've had a lot of conversation. What are some of your long-term goals? Like when you look at, yourself, because this is our soft launch for Track Talk, but we want to give everyone just a little bit about ourselves, outside of running and with running. And then when we move forward, we're going to have more in-depth conversations with other people, talking about specific track events and all those things. But, what are some of your long-term goals in running and outside of running?
My long-term goals for running are mostly to just stay healthy and have as long and healthy of a career as possible. Something that's very important to me is longevity in the sport. I want to be doing this for as long as I can because I love it. So I think my goal is just to take care of myself and stay healthy. And I think ultimately by doing that, that's what's going to make me the best runner that I can be. And that's what's going to help me achieve my other very specific running goals. Like I really want to medal in LA 2028. I think that if I am able to continue progressing the way that I've progressed the last 4 years, I think that that could be a pretty realistic goal. And yeah, so just continuing to improve my times and get as much experience with championship racing and tactical racing and continue to be a true competitor. And also the American records right there. I think that there's at least 3 of us right now that are super close to that. So hopefully that's going to go down here in the next year. And obviously, hopefully, I hope to claim that American record. But if not, I think that we're just going to continue to push the limits on what's possible. And I think there's no reason why we can't keep breaking it over and over. So just really excited for the future of the 1500. And another goal of mine is to try my hand in the 800 a couple times here in the next couple of years. I really surprised myself with the 1-800 that I did run this past spring. And I think that I just haven't really explored my potential in that event. So I'm going to try to do a little bit more speed work and just race a couple more 800s this year to see what I can do in that event as well.
I love the 800, and I've said to you on the last couple of our talks, I'd love to see you run some more of those. So that's exciting.
Outside of running professionally, I don't really know yet.
The
I
next
think,
Van Gogh?
what'd you say?
Next, like Dolly or Van Gogh or something? You and your painting?
I don't know about that. It's a fun hobby, but I wouldn't say that I'm talented enough to pursue a career in it, but definitely something I want to continue to do on the side. But I'm really interested in psychology. So I think that maybe being a sports psychologist, I don't know, I would just love to help younger athletes with the mental health side of everything and just the mental side of sport, because I think it is equally as important to be mentally strong as it is to be physically strong. And it's a huge component of sport. Being a professional runner, I think I would have some pretty good insight and on top of education. If I would obviously have to go back to school to do that, but I think that's something I would really enjoy and it would be super rewarding.
Binghamton
And it would,
University would probably love to have you back. They have a good psychology department too.
oh yeah. I think that would be one of my top picks, but yeah, I just think it would be good to use my experience as a professional runner in my next profession, whatever I choose to end up doing. But I also thought about maybe being an agent would be kind of fun. I would definitely need more experience or a business degree or something like that. I would have to finish my MBA, but I think that that would be good because I think that there needs to be more women in that field.
I saw on Instagram the other day, and it was great. I'll forward it to you, but it was about women, and they were going after a company about women being important. It was like one of the most moving things I've seen on Instagram. I agree with you with that realm of the world of agency, but it's just, I think, in sports and everything.
Yeah, in sports in general. And I think it's gotten a lot better in the past few years, but I hope to see it continue to improve and there to just be more female coaches, some more female agents, just more women in sport in general. And I think it's promising to see the growth that has happened, but I think it's really important that we stay on that trajectory and continue to see that grow.
I feel women, like in track and field and in the Olympics, I felt like it was a much more level playing field than like in the past of what you might hear on social media or what might be on TV or what might be out there in the newspapers. I felt like it was maybe one of the most level playing fields I've seen.
Yeah, I think that there's just a lot more people getting excited about women's sport. And you've seen that in the last couple of years, especially with the WNBA and even like women's like college basketball has become huge in the last couple of years. Like people are starting to pay way more attention to women's sports. I think track and field is one of the sports where like women get almost like as much hype as the men do. And we saw also this year in track and field, specifically the Athlos meet. That was a all women's meet. And that was the first time something like that had been done. And so I think things like that are just like super important in helping to progress women's sport for sure.
When even how about like the Chicago Marathon, the woman winner under 210. It's the first
That
time
was
ever for a woman. To me, I like seeing that not just for her. You like seeing a world record, but to see a woman run a 209 and the winning man was 6.5 minutes ahead. I mean, to me, that's what I noticed the most. And I thought that was awesome. It was like,
right.
wow, he was 6.5 minutes behind the male winner. I mean, going under 210 is insane. I mean, that's just, she's clocking off sub 5-minute miles in the last 10K, which was crazy. But to be that close and to run that fast is awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think it's also just, I guess, redefining what's possible. And it's super interesting to think about how and why she was able to do that, like what her training looks like, what kind of shoes she was wearing. I think she was wearing the Nike Alpha
I don't know all the
Flies
names anymore, but
or
I
something
know I
like
see it all
that.
over social media. It's like the winner was in Nike, then it was Adidas, New Balance, Brooks. Like they break them all out like that way. But
Yeah.
I think she was wearing Nikes, yes.
Yeah. I think it was a pretty even spread though of the different shoe brands. Yeah. So who knows? But people are arguing, oh, it's not the super shoes. Those have been around for years now. But I think that accumulation of multiple years with the super shoes, people are still like benefiting from that, even though have been around for a few years. This is a very interesting area that I think needs to be researched more. I'm not quite sure what I think or believe in this regard, but I think that it's possible that wearing super shoes in training could lead to greater gains in fitness.
So I've never worn a pair of carbon plated, but I was telling you earlier that I've worn a new pair that have the plastic type plating in it. And I felt a difference, and I've worn them for 5 or 6 runs. And then I go back and forth between a pair that doesn't have them in there. I don't know how to actually pinpoint it, but it's like taking any great piece of technology and then it's how do you incorporate it into your life? So it's like, how would you incorporate that technology into your training? And then how could it make you better with your training?
I think that it helps you to train harder with less effort. So you can go a little bit further and just get a little bit higher volume in your training and just still be able to recover just as well. But I think that as long as you're able to stay healthy, it could be super beneficial. So it's just like finding that kind of balance between carbon and non-carbon shoes and wearing them as much as possible without overdoing it. Because I do believe that some people have gotten injured because of the carbon plated shoes, because it definitely changes your gait, the way you run, and you're using different muscles and putting stress on different areas of the body as well. So
yeah, on a personal level, when I wore the one pair, it was after another run, and I was a little surprised, like, wow, when I had them off later that day, I felt some aches and pains a little more. And I don't know if that softened it and it was easier to run through it. I think that's kind of maybe what you're saying is sometimes if you don't pay attention to how it's working for you, it could be a positive or it could even be a negative in a way. But if you're smart with it, who knows what it can do.
Right. And then also easing into it too. So don't all of a sudden start wearing it for 30 miles a week. You start off with maybe 5 miles a week, then 10. And just getting your body used to carbon, I think, is really important too, because then you have people who don't wear carbon at all season, and then they go race in the carbon plated shoes. I think it matters more on like the longer distances where you're wearing them for a longer amounts of time.
Especially a marathon.
Exactly. You can't just like not wear carbon and then run a whole marathon in carbon plated shoes. You probably will get injured from doing that. So yeah, just like exposing yourself to it throughout your training, I think is super important to staying healthy when it comes time to race. But personally, I usually don't wear carbon unless I'm in spikes. At least that's what I would do last year, is most of my training in non-carbon shoes until sharpening up before outdoor season, or indoor and outdoors. But until we were doing speed work, I wouldn't really wear carbon at all. And I think this year I'm going to experiment a little bit more with wearing carbon for tempo runs and just more mileage in carbon plated shoes, but being really careful and maybe doing it every other week. Just throw on the carbon plated shoes for a tempo instead of going from never wearing carbon to wearing it multiple times a week.
It's almost like, for people out there that have worn Birkenstocks, it's like they tell you when you put them on, don't go out and walk all day in them. Wear them around the house, wear them for a half an hour, wear them for an hour to get used to them. So it's something along those lines.
No, definitely. Yeah. So I would like to hear a little bit about your running goals, though, and then your goals outside of running for long term.
I think one of the biggest things for me turning 51 in August was I finally let go of like the past. It was one of the hardest things for me, even from, 30 years ago of running, and even 15 years ago, 10 years ago, of where I was at. 10 years ago when I was 40, I was still running like 16 flat 5Ks. And now I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm trying to compare myself to what I was.
Right.
And I finally let go of that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to start fresh in my mind. It doesn't matter where I'm at. And that's helped a ton. Like, just being completely transparent. When I just started running again in the end of August, my first runs were like 2 miles, and I'm like 9-minute pace. And there's nothing wrong with 9-minute pace. I mean, I've always said a 20-minute mile or a 5-minute mile, you're still running a mile. But for me, I was comparing it to where I was before. And I've let go of that. And if I've made huge gains, I went off your advice from the Fifth Avenue mile of just run for time instead of distance. I look at it, and I go for 30-minute runs, and I'm going to enjoy my run and feel good. And there's some days I allow myself to pick up the pace. And like, I've gotten some of it down now. I try a progression run once a week, and it went from like 8:30s to 8s to 7:50. And now I'm dropping down to 6:20, 6:10 in 2 months. So it's when you don't the pressure of where you were at one point, and you say, hey, this is a new beginning. So I signed up for a 10K next month. And my goal is to run it healthy and run as fast as I can where I'm at. It's more just putting yourself in the position. And I think it goes back to what you were saying. At my age, I want to run healthy. That's the number one goal.
Yeah.
So what do I have to do to stay healthy? And then that other word, consistency, comes in. And it's the more consistent you are, which I've been consistent since I saw you when you challenged, to run the Fifth Avenue mile next year. Like I took that in, and I was flying home, and I'm like, I'm going to run the Fifth Avenue mile next year. And the reason I didn't want to commit to it right away was I was so worried about, well, how fast am I going to run? And it's like, don't worry about how fast you already like set yourself up for failure in a way. Just train for a year and take baby steps. And then when you run it, see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that.
So I don't
I'm
really
glad
have
you were
goals other than consistency and health. It's both of those. And that's where it comes into is, I think, young and old. It's something I didn't do a lot when I was younger, is the recovery. And I even started weight training. Yeah, those two words. I used to never do that. And I do that twice a week now. So even doing that, so I'm doing all the things to be able to run because I love to run. So I know your question was, what are my goals? My goals are to be healthy and consistent. And if I do both of those, I think I can run pretty fast again.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's like the same as my goals.
It's like a little faster.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Let's just take Boston Marathon for example. This just hit me. If you're thinking, I want to qualify for the Boston Marathon, what are the two things you have to do before you even run a time? You need to be healthy, and you need to be consistent, and you have to be running. If you're not doing those things, and that when I say all that, it's recovery and weight training too, you're probably not going to run that time. So it's almost like starting with those two things, consistency and health.
Yeah, you've got to make it to the starting line. Yes, first things first.
Well, yeah, typically I wouldn't even sign up for a 10K a month away. And I already signed up because I'd be like, oh, what's going to happen in the next month? And I'm like, well, if I continue to do what I'm doing, I'll get to the starting line. And whatever happens, happens. If I run fast or I run slow, but I'll be at the starting line.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's good not to have like two specific time goals, especially comparing to, 10 years ago. I feel like at some point it's really important to almost just compare yourself to the day before. Set your goals based on like, I just want to be better than the day before or the week before, instead of comparing with someone else or to yourself like 10 years ago.
Kobe Bryant I wish I could say it exactly how he said it, but he gave a great, it was a kind of a lengthy quote, but he talked about looking at yourself in the mirror every morning. And if you see yourself getting better and doing the right things in a month, 2 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, you'll be better. You'll be where you want to be. And that's something I've always kind of remembered.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's super helpful sometimes to just kind of reset and let go of any sort of like distance goals or pace goals and just run and try to reconnect with just like your love for running and just try to enjoy it without worrying.
So when you ran at the Martinez Classic last year, the 800,
Mhm.
what were your expectations going into it? Because this just triggered me sitting here talking about goals and stuff. So when you run a 1500, you're looking to qualify for the Olympic trials, qualify for Olympics, get to Olympics.
Mhm.
Martinez Classic, what were your goals going into that?
Yeah, I mean, I had the goal of breaking 2. I really wanted to break that barrier of 2 minutes because one of my goals when I became a professional runner was to break 2 in the 8, 4 in the 15, and then 15 minutes in the 5K. So I wanted to check off one more of those boxes. That was my main goal. And then I guess just to race well and just focus on being better than I was the year before, which meant breaking 2. So it was goals that were centered around myself and they were just very personal to me. Like I wasn't comparing myself to anyone else. I wasn't like, oh, I want to like beat this person or run a faster time than this person. I was like, I want to run a faster time for me. And I think that that's super helpful.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think my PR is like 15-14 or something like that, but it's been a couple years. So I think, honestly, I would like to think that if I ran a 5K this past summer season, I like to think I could have broken 15 minutes, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Any of those on the horizon, or is that more the 800, if anything?
More the 800, but we'll see. We'll just see where the year takes me, honestly. I can't plan that far ahead. I don't even know what event I'm going to try to go for indoors yet.
I will say the 800 is pretty cool indoors.
Yeah.
There's 4 laps, like just
It's
it's
stressful.
very similar in the mindset of a 1500 or a mile outside, but it's inside. So
Yeah.
when I did both of those back in the day, that's how I thought about the 800 indoors. Is I was like, all right, it's like a mile outdoors, but it's half the distance.
Yeah. I don't know. I like indoors because you feel so much faster just whipping around the shorter track. I hate that it's called short track now. Also, I keep forgetting it's not indoor track, it's short track, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Hey, Binghamton University, I was telling you in New York, we used to have that wooden little indoor track, which I
Yeah.
want to find out how big it was, but that was, talk about a short track. I mean, that was like a miniature short track.
Yeah. But you feel fast with the bank and with the shorter track and just whipping around.
Like when you're running, you have the runners around you, but if you ever get separated from runners, everywhere in an indoor track, there's like a spectator within like 10 feet of you.
Yeah.
So there's always someone right next to you, which I know I fed off of that when I was younger. An indoor track, like, like a basketball game or a football game when you go to a professional sporting event or a hockey game. It's like you feel the vibe of the whole stadium, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. No, that's one thing I love about indoors is just the atmosphere. And then also the controlled elements. But I do think that racing in 800 indoors is maybe a little bit more stressful because the straights are so short. It's only 50-meter straights instead of 100-meter straightaways. So there's way less time and room for passing people.
Passing.
Which
you have to get out fast.
In an
and hang out.
800, that's like you have so little time. So that's why I'm like, whew, I don't know.
You're a strong runner, though, so you might be good going out hard right at the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
And
right.
hang on as long as you can.
Yeah. So I feel like it would be fun to experiment with that a little bit this indoors, but we'll see. I can't remember the last time I raced an 800 indoors. I think it was in college. I think it was my last senior year of college.
That was my last one. It was actually in Boston.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
That big track in there.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's my favorite. That's my favorite track for sure.
Did they have ECACs there when you were there?
I don't think I did ECACs, but we had our conference championship there. But.
Yeah, I always remember that bank track. And when I was in the finals, the 800, I was in the way at the top of the bank to start. And I remember like looking over the ledge and looking down at the guy in the first lane. I was like, holy
Yeah. Feels like you're running downhill to start the race. It's kind of
yeah.
awesome.
I remember Mike Thompson was like, get out fast. And I'm like, get out fast. I'm running down a hill to start. It was like, when I looked to the angle, it's like, just
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's so fun. Now I'm getting excited for indoor season. I need to calm down.
when did it start?
Oh, geez. I think
February?
February. Yeah. Yeah. So I've got time.
There's a race at Ithaca, and it's called the Hartshorn Mile. And it's for everyone over 40. And they have age groups of like 40 and up, then 50 and up, 60 and up. And they get people from all over the United States, even sometimes from around the world. You got me excited at the Fifth Avenue Mile.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes my hamstring scream though, because I'm like running a mile fast is like painful.
It's so fun though. It's exhilarating. It is.
I think
It is
10
tough.
Ks easier though. It's like you can go slower and further than just going so hard.
Yeah. I will say it feels like a sprint the entire time, but you'll do great. You've got so much time to train for it.
Speaking of the Fifth Avenue Mile, I really thought that was a cool course.
Yeah.
I mean, how you go down, then up a little, and then down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I feel like there's a lot of strategy involved with that too. I think I'm going to try to race it a little bit different next year. Because it was like,
going out so hard.
I went out so hard. I forget what we went out in, but it was like, what was it, 58?
Weren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 58. And then we hit the second quarter, and that was downhill. And then everyone else started making their move and using the downhill, passing me. And I was still trying to recover from the first quarter, going out in 58. I was like, okay, settle in, settle in. Everyone comes flying past me. I'm like, that's smart. Like, I should have done that. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, that's the thing, though. It's like, sometimes it's like a 61 might not actually even feel that much better than a 58, honestly. It's going to hurt no matter what. So might as well go out hard and then just try to hang on. I don't know. I think it's going to take me a few years to get the like right strategy down for that race, but I'll figure it out eventually because I hope to be back there every year.
Yeah, that atmosphere was awesome. I remember when I was running from my hotel up to the race, it felt like there was a tailwind. And then I got to the race and I was like, wait, that tailwind's gone. I was actually texting some of my friends. I'm like, I think it's going to be really fast. It's like a total tailwind. And then I got up to where the race was and I was going up the course to get towards the starting line. I was like, that's not a tailwind the whole time anymore. Like it was like swirling around, it felt like.
Yeah. It's like during the warm up, we all noticed that. We were like, oh, perfect. Because the wind was in our face when we were running from the finish down to the start as part of our warm up. We're like doing our drills, about to start the race, and we're facing the finish line. We're like, how is the wind at our face again? We thought we were going to have a tailwind, and then we just absolutely did not.
And that was me on the side. I'm like texting my friends back. I'm like, well, now that I'm up here at the starting line, I'm like, that wind is not a tailwind anymore. Yeah. Like now it's like a
switched directions.
Which in New York City, I know when you walk through the streets, like it can change with the alleyways, but I don't know. I've never really had it change like direction. So, all right, so a couple things because you asked me and we got off tangent a little bit, but I guess that's what Track Talk's going to be. Does your diet kind of stay the same all year? I know you're just started up again the last month, you're off season. What's your diet look like throughout the year, in season, off season? Yeah. Do you have anything specific, some of your favorite foods to eat the night before a race or anything like that?
Yeah, I don't know. It changes a lot, to be honest.
Shake Shack? Shake Shack?
Yeah, Shake Shack. Yeah, probably wouldn't be eating Shake Shack before a major championship. I will say before the Fifth Ave Mile, it sat great. I think it was perfect fuel for the Fifth Ave Mile.
I thought it was good. I've never had it before, so thank you to you two for introducing me to say. Yeah, now it's funny. Wherever I travel, I see them, and I'm like, oh, there's a Shake Shack.
It's like before you weren't paying attention, but now that you know what it is, you notice them everywhere.
Yeah, now they're like on every corner I drive or walk or run.
Yeah. Now I would say in the off season, I just eat whatever I want all year round, but just within reason. And so I'm more reasonable when I'm in season and maybe a little bit less reasonable when I'm out of season. I don't think about it as much. Whereas when I'm in season, I really think about, okay, have I had enough protein today? What do I need to do to meet my protein intake? Which I don't count macros or anything like that, but I just think logically, trying to get protein in every single meal. Whereas if I'm not in season, I'll be like, okay, if I could just have a croissant for breakfast and I'll have protein later. It's just
Sure.
I don't focus on it as much. But it doesn't change too much because I feel like if I get too restrictive in season, then I just find it's way harder to stay regimented if I'm super restrictive. And then I'm going to have like big cravings. Whereas if I just eat everything in moderation, it's just more sustainable than going on like a strict diet. And then as soon as I'm able to let myself eat whatever I want again, I'm going to like, binge ice cream and cookies and cake and whatever. I don't know. I think it's healthier and it's mentally a lot easier to just kind of just eat.
Since the Fifth Avenue Mile, I'm like, all right, I'm going to start paying attention a little more what I do. Like I've moved my runs to the morning more because I know if I run in the morning, I'm better with the judgment of what I'm doing throughout the day and the night before. Like the night before when I'm not training, I'm like, I'm gonna have a glass of wine. And then I might have 2 glasses of wine. And now with running in the morning, at night, I'm like, I'm not having a glass of wine. I'm going to have water instead. So when I'm in training, I'm just more in tune. I'm not crazy about it, but it's just like when you're more serious about something like an in season, you're just watching it more carefully.
Right. Because you think about whatever you eat and whatever you're consuming, you're going to think about how it's going to affect your training or your fitness or whatever. So it's the same for
Like when
me.
I was in New York for the Fifth Avenue Mile, I probably ate 10 pizzas because I haven't had New York pizza in so long. So like every meal, it was like breakfast. I had pizza. It was like, I have to have pizza.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And I'm not going to do that here.
When I'm training, I feel like I'm less likely to just have a glass of wine with dinner. I feel like when I'm on my break from running, I'm more likely to just do it. And then when I'm in season or when I'm even just training really hard, I think, oh, if I have a glass of wine, I might not sleep as well tonight and it's going to affect my recovery. So it's like everything I do, I think about how it's going to affect my running when I'm training hard and when I'm in season. But it's that really short off season that I get every year where I allow myself to not think about what I'm doing and how it's going to affect my health. So that's for about 2 weeks. I like having structure and I like feeling like the things that I'm doing and what I'm consuming is good for me and is going to make me feel good and be able to stay fit and perform well.
The last month of training, I'm like, all right, I'm running 4 days a week. I'm running these 2 days during the week and then both days on the weekend. Once I have that structure down, everything else kind of falls into place the right way. I eat healthier and I do things healthier.
Right.
In the end, it's better for me anyway.
Right. And it's easier when you're not training, it's easier to just think, whatever, it doesn't matter. But when you're training really hard, you're like, I'm not working this hard to not be fit because I'm eating too many like sweet treats, I'm
going to be a little vulnerable right now, but like it's the first time I've been excited about running in probably like 3 years. When I went out for a run the other day, I was like, all right, it's a 30-minute run. And I was like, wait a minute, I have a goal of running a 10K next month. So I said, I'm going to try running 5 miles. It's the only time in a month that I picked a distance. And I was like, I'm going to run 5 miles. And I'm running and I'm like, this feels so good. But to go back at the night before, I actually drank water and had a good, healthy dinner. I was like excited to actually run. So then when I get that in me, now all of a sudden, that's the positive. I'm going to do the right things. I mean, I still had a glass of wine, but it was like I had 1 glass of wine.
Right. It's like a positive cycle that you get into.
And this was just a 5-mile run that I was going to do slight progression in it. But I was so excited to like be doing that the next morning. It was almost like a race, but it wasn't a race. Do you still get that feeling sometimes?
I felt that way yesterday in my first workout. I was like, I haven't worked out in a month and I wasn't expecting to feel very good. But when I started running, I was like, I'm actually enjoying this so much right now. It feels good to run fast because it had been so long. I didn't realize how much I missed it. I think it's healthy to get to a point where you do miss it because then that's how you prevent burnout is you take a break that's long enough for you to feel like, all right, you know what? I really miss it. And I'm antsy to get back into things.
I saw the workout online. You were at Heartbreak Hill, right? Were you doing repeats there?
Yep. Yeah. It was tough for a first workout back doing hill repeats, but it was fun. I enjoyed it.
So do you do time-wise hill repeats or is it more a distance?
So it's a distance. We start at the bottom of the hill and run up to the top. It's a good workout to start off with is because it's not like a 400 repeat where you have a very specific time you're trying to hit every lap. It's just kind of like, okay, we're just effort based, running up this hill decently hard and just starting to get back. And I think it's a really good like strength based workout.
So you just triggered something in mind because you went to UE too. So you have the beautiful track at UE. When I ran, we had a cinder track. So when it rained, you couldn't run on it. I don't know if you remember, do you know the parking lot where like the Boys and Girls Club was? Or if it's still there, I think it's still there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you parked on the back. You know how you can run underneath the bridge going over to Vestal?
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever run over there, there's like a slight hill you go up.
Yeah.
In track, you'd run up that hill and you turn a left and they marked off 200 meters.
Yeah.
We used to do a lot of hill training actually back
That's
in the
a
day.
great hill for it.
You'd get to the top and you'd have a sharp turn. You turn left and then you had to run another 100. So it was 100 meters up the hill and then 100 meters flat. That was a cool workout back then, though.
I like workouts like that. Heartbreak Hill is a little bit like that. It's steeper to start and then it kind of flattens out a little bit at the top. So you can almost like push a little bit harder, even though your legs are starting to feel dead. You're like, okay, it's flat. And you can kind of pick up the pace a little bit. And it feels good to finish faster than you started, even though your legs are getting wobbly. And yeah, it's tough, but it's a lot of fun.
When I start to incorporate some workouts like that back in, which I'm not doing right away, but we have hills here in Florida, but they're called bridges because those are our only hills. But I'm going to have to think about that because you don't even have to go necessarily that fast to get a lot of benefits out of it.
Right. No, it's really good for strength. And especially if you're going to be doing any road races, it's really good to train on hills because that way you're going to feel strong when you hit a hill during your race.
Well, the unfortunate thing in Florida is not many races on the roads have hills. Broome County, I mean, all we had was hills and I loved them. And now it's just flat.
I think it made us stronger runners.
I do.
Yeah.
I remember the runs that Mr. Osborne and Mr. Miller used to always put us on. And I mean, we'd leave from UE and we'd run to like, Struble Road in Endwell.
Yep.
We would take a right and go up that. And it's like a 1.5 miles long up the hill.
Yeah.
And then we'd come down by Binghamton and it'd be like a 10-mile run and like 6 miles was uphill.
Yeah. I know that's the thing. I feel like I've gotten a little bit soft to hills from living in Boston because we run on the river so much. It's really not very hilly around here. And then I'll go home and you just cannot do a run without rolling hills in the Broome County area. And it gets me every time. Like I used to just run those like it was nothing. And now I'm like huffing and puffing up.
Well, when I decided to start running again, it was around the time of my sister's race. And it was like my second or third run, and we were staying on the Parkway by Binghamton University. I'm like, I'm going to go for a run. So I ran down to Binghamton, ran around all the grass fields where we used to do our warm-ups and everything, and I did a lap around the track. And then I'd run back to the hotel, and it was uphill. And I'd run up a hill, and I don't even know how long. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I used to love these things, and it hurt.
Yeah.
I think we can kind of close out now. We went a lot longer than we even thought we would.
Yeah. No, this is good. We got talking like we said we would.